Shalom, family, shalom. The seeds that we sow, the seeds that we sow. The reason why I'm making this video, family, I had a relative reach out to me a few days ago, and he remembered a conversation that we had a few months ago about I was explaining to him the prophetic nature and the biblical narrative of who we are as a people. So he and a friend of his were having a discussion, and they was talking about Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. And it reminded him of a conversation we had according to the prophetic nature and the biblical narrative. And he thought about me, he thought about our conversation. So he called me. So I went over a few things with him, and we went over Daniel, the 7th chapter. Talked about he shall think to change times and laws. And I showed him what month we were in, and he got that. It made sense to him. We also read Daniel, the 3rd chapter, when it talked about when Nebuchadnezzar made this statue or this image, and they bowed down and they worshipped it every time. They bowed out and worshipped it every time they heard music. It made sense to him. Thought about the national anthem. We went over Genesis, the 15th chapter, when the Most High told Abram, "Know for surety that thy seed shall be in a land that's not theirs. They shall afflict them for 400 years." It made sense to him. We went over Revelations 11 and 8, and their dead bodies shall be found in a great city, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. Well, also our Lord was crucified. Edified him with that. Again, my point is, family, is this. I gave him the information. It made sense to him. Gave him history. Made sense to him. But I didn't beat him over the head with it. I just planted that seed months ago. I had another relative. I had a cousin. She called me not long ago. Talked to her about this probably 2 years now. She's finally seeing things. Things are beginning to make sense to her. Had another friend that came across this information from other people, and the reason why they backed away from it is because when they saw videos of the hatred, they saw videos of how certain brothers talk about the sisters, and not even talk about how they talk about the sisters, how they talk about the men, and they have this puffed up spirit of hatred for the other nations. Don't get me wrong, I understand the brother's pain. We're all in pain. But the scriptures tells us, do not oppress the stranger. That's number one. Scriptures also say, do not vex the stranger. Scriptures also, all this in the law now, it also says that the stranger that shall join among you shall be like one of the native born. There should be one law for the native born and for the foreign born, right? So I get that. I really do get that. And again, I understand how brothers feel the way they feel, but the law is what the law is. And if you're really guided by the fruits of the Most High, through Hamashiach, the Spirit will test their spirit to see if they're really walking in truth, to receive and humble themselves, where you can be a guide to them. You can be a light for the Gentiles. But most of our people don't have that spirit because, again, they haven't made a transition yet. They haven't made it. It's not to when you begin to make this transition. It starts with accountability. You have to hold yourself. You have to hold yourself and your ancestors accountable first. Most of our people don't want to do that. Don't get me wrong. It's hard because we see the murder of our people innocently. We see the discrimination. You know, we see the unfair treatment. We know the history of the rape, the murder, the theft. We know all this. You know, but also is taught, we're taught, be angry but sin not. It's hard. Don't get me wrong, it's hard. But my point is, family, is I planted these seeds, and I just sit back and I watched, I waited. Not beat nobody over the head. I'm not here to demonize nobody. I have my own stuff that I need to work on to make sure that my relationship is protected. I want you to get that. What's really interesting to me is when I hear people say, well, the law is just for Israel. Right? If the law is just for Israel, where there's no law, there's no judgment. I want you to think about that. If the law is just for Israel, where there is no law, there is no judgment. So how can you get mad with the Gentiles for doing what they do to you if the law don't apply to them? You should get that. That doesn't make sense. The Most High don't operate like that. But if you're a light to the Gentile, and the light represents law, if you're walking in the law, the Gentiles want to know your power, who you serve. And they shall know you by the fruits of your labor. Then they shall also know you by the love that you have for one another. Let that resonate in your mind for a minute. With that being said, peace, love, shalom.